Hi there, and welcome to my Brain Health Cooking Kitchen. I'm Diana Liz, and today I am creating a recipe from this incredible book, Eat to Beat Disease by Dr. William Li. The recipe is by a chef named Amanda Cohen, and it has an unlikely combination of ingredients, but they are magical for health. The recipe includes mushrooms, blackberries, and pecans. So I know it sounds kind of a little bit weird, but the recipe is delicious. It is super quick and easy, and it's affordable, neurotrophic. And those of you who have seen previous episodes of Brain Health Cooking know that I answer the questions of why it's important that we eat a certain particular food, how we should prepare it, what things we should include, what things we should avoid. Is it good for me? How do I determine if it's good for me? There is no one brain health diet. There is a general diet that we can follow, but we need to nuance it in order to remove the straws off the camel's back. So today I'm going to be answering 10 questions. What are anthocyanins? What foods contain anthocyanins? What is important about anthocyanins? And who should eat anthocyanins? Is this something that everyone should do in the same way? What's so special about mushrooms? And what about people on the who have COMT and the MTHFR gene SNP? Who should eat mushrooms? And why are pecans good for the brain? And why we should never cook with olive oil. That's right, we should never cook olive oil. This doesn't mean that we don't eat it, we just do not heat it, and why. Although the word anthocyanin sounds like a poison, it's actually a water-soluble pigment that's in certain foods. And fruits that are red to purple and blue, and also vegetables, leafy greens, tubers. If you see the color purple or blue or even red, you're looking at nutrition and you're looking at anthocyanins. Now, the purple and the blue indicate the highest level of anthocyanins, and blueberries are the highest, and even higher than blueberries are wild blueberries, followed by blackberries. And this recipe has blackberries. There is a strong scientific evidence that anthocyanins really do impact brain function. However, the individuals with COMT need to be careful consuming anthocyanins. This is a very nutritious food, and we don't want to not eat it, but we don't want to eat too much or too often. It isn't clear if the anthocyanins have direct impact on the neurons, or whether they lower inflammation, which we know is a very important part of brain health, or they impact some other modulatory effect that we don't understand this yet. Most studies, there have been quite a number of them, have used between 400 and 600 milligrams of an anthocyanin supplement. Some of the studies used a lot more than that. Within 12 weeks, they found a slight increase in cognition. I found one study that used real blueberries for the study, and they found that as little as 1/3 of a cup of blueberries could mitigate disease. So here's to blueberries and blackberries. I am going to chop these very, very fine. I'm going to chop these in just a little bit. These have been in the refrigerator waiting for this moment. And so I'm going to chop these into, if you can, chop them into thirds. These are ripe, so I'm just going to chop them into halves. The next ingredient in this recipe are portobello mushrooms. And like other mushrooms, they are a fungi that grow in rich soil. And the thing that is interesting about mushrooms is that they contain their own microbiome. And when we eat the mushroom, we're actually eating the mushroom plus their microbiome. And I have spoken repeatedly about the work of Tim Spector, and that after a lifetime of research, his conclusion is that the best thing that we can do for ourselves is eat a variety of foods and build our microbiome. So mushrooms is an ideal food to do that. Another thing that is important about mushrooms, that they're a sulfur-rich food. And Terry Walls is one of my functional medicine heroes. And she's a doctor who brought herself to health through nutrition and lifestyle. And mushrooms are a very important component of the Walls protocol. So mushrooms help with protein synthesis, and like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cabbage, they promote healthy joints, skin, hair, nails. They promote a healthy body. In addition to all these, mushrooms are very high in B vitamins. And if you carry the MTHFR gene SNP, or I don't carry the MTHFR gene SNP, I carry the COMT gene SNP. And I recently had blood work done and my B vitamins were not up to snuff. So mushrooms can help me bring my numbers up. There's one more thing that I need to add about mushrooms. And a number of doctors point this out. Dr. Dale Bredesen, who is has a protocol for the reversal of cognitive decline and the prevention of Alzheimer's, and Terry Walls with her work on MS. And that is that if you have an autoimmune disorder and you consume mushrooms, they can possibly trigger it. So really, if you have an autoimmune disorder, you need to be extremely careful with mushrooms, and you need to have a discussion with your doctor before you start eating lots of mushrooms to create health. So even if you don't have an autoimmune disorder, in Institute of Functional Medicine, we say start low and go slow. And when dealing with mushrooms, if you do not have a history of eating mushrooms and this is a new experience for you, I would recommend that you start with Portobello mushrooms, like these big ones, or cremini or button mushrooms, a common type of mushrooms, before you venture out into more exotic forms. I'm now going to cut the mushrooms in long, thin slivers. And the recipe says to do 2 mushrooms per person. The first time that I made this recipe, I did not follow directions and I did not use my cast iron skillet. It's heavy and it's hard to clean, and to keep it in the pristine patine that you want on it, it's just a lot of trouble. And I don't like to mess with it. But after I made this recipe and it was horrible, I decided to follow instructions, and the next time it came out much better. So if at all possible, get your cast iron skillet out. The recipe says to heat the oil in a cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. And I would not use olive oil under medium-high heat. It's just too delicate. And the minute we introduce heat, we begin to lose the polyphenols. And that's the whole reason that we eat olive oil. So I prefer to cook with avocado oil. And when the recipe is complete, then add the olive oil. We do not need to get to the smoke point to begin to break down the polyphenols. It's the moment heat is introduced that they begin to break down. So for this reason, I am changing the recipe from cooking with olive oil to avocado oil. The recipe says to cook the mushrooms for 3 minutes and to flip them without breaking. That's what I'm going to try and do. While the mushrooms are cooking, I'm going to prepare now one of the things that I've just done is that I lowered the temperature. The cooking on a electric glass top stove is very difficult because it's very difficult to adjust the temperature just right. And it got medium high was, I set it on medium and it was too hot, so I've reduced it to low. So you can use your judgment to stay below the smoke point and to keep the food from the oils from becoming toxic. The mushrooms did work just right at 3 minutes, and then I flipped them, so I'm on the second set now. Now the recipe calls to put the mushrooms in a mold and arrange them beautifully, but I don't mess with the mold. I'm interested in quick, easy, delicious, affordable, and neurotrophic. And if I were a chef, I would have much more emphasis on presentation. But since my goal is nutrition, they're just as nutritious without the beautiful mold. While the mushrooms are finishing up, I'm going to start the secret sauce. And it's composed of apple cider vinegar, 1/4 cup, 2 tablespoons, recipe called for honey. And the first time I made it with honey, the second time I made it with maple syrup. And I really do like the taste of maple syrup better. So I've chosen to do maple syrup and 2 tablespoons water. We're going to heat this. And then when it's nice and hot, I'm going to pour it over the blackberries. I'm going to pour the apple cider vinegar, the water, and the maple syrup over the blackberries and let them cool. Now, I don't have any stock in this olive oil company. They are grown in my state, and they are a family-owned business, and they take great pride in their product. You can visit their website, and you can see the lengths that they go to produce a quality olive oil. A number of years ago, California Olive Ranch brought lawsuit to Cabell's olive oil company because they were doing blends, and they felt that it should be that it was not a good practice, and they thought it might be illegal. But the courts ruled with Cabell's, and a couple of years later, California Olive Ranch started doing their own blends, and they have an Argentinian blend and a Mediterranean brand. And I'll come back to that. I do not purchase blends. I want an individual company, person, not the whole country of Argentina. So family owned is very important to me. Extra virgin olive oil. And this is the company that I support. And I hope that you will find an olive oil company that you can rely on, because this is one of the most essential nutrients for brain health. And now that this is cool, I'm going to add the olive oil to it. And I promise you, you won't taste the olive oil. And besides, if you did, this olive oil is delicious. And anytime people have to add flavoring to an olive oil to make it taste good, I'm suspicious. I want just olive oil. And if I want to add oregano and thyme and make my blend, that's okay. But I don't want anything covered up, covering up the flavor of my olive oil, because I want to make sure that it's fresh. So I'm going to serve the pecans, and I'll let you see what it looks like. While this recipe can be served as a side salad or as an appetizer, it can also be a meat substitute on Meatless Mondays. The brain health diet is primarily a plant-based diet. Now, the last step that we have is to add some healthy fats. And we all became fat phobic in the 1950s and 1958 with the work of Anthocyanin. And but healthy fats are essential for our health. The lining on each neuron, called the axon, is actually made of cholesterol. Yes, cholesterol. So healthy fats are an essential, and omega-3 is the most desired fat. So I'm adding pecans that I have crushed, and I'm adding it to the salad. And I'm adding brain nutrition when I add primarily, there are many nuts that do this, but walnuts, almonds, and pecans are the top of the list. So let me see, which one shall I show you? Here we go. See how incredible this looks. If you found any part of this presentation helpful, I hope you will consider subscribing and sharing it with people you love. I'm Diana Liz, and bon appetit for a brighter brain.